Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show with your host, David Lawrence.
Welcome to another episode of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. And I'm delighted today to be in the offices with Evgeny Likhoded. I hope I've pronounced that right. Hopefully one of the founders of ClauseMatch. I'm going to call you Jay because that's what you tell me everyone calls you. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Can you share with our listeners a little bit about the company, about ClauseMatch, and how you came about founding the company?
Yeah, so ClauseMatch helps financial services clients with compliance.
Yeah.
So we help banks and fintech companies to automate a lot of compliance tasks of today.
And how did the organisation come about, and what changes have you seen in the industry from before you launched up until now?
So I guess in the last 10 years we've seen a massive change in what compliance department means to a bank. Before 2008, before the financial crisis, we had compliance departments as a department which kind of just needs to do something to show compliance. But today, over the last 10 years, we have seen massive regulatory change. We have seen regulators looking into how people conduct the business within banks. Because let's face it, looking at regulatory fines, not a single bank has got compliance right. And we're seeing that the role of compliance is changing from being a department which was overlooked to a department which has got a board seat today, which has got a lot of power in terms of directing how business should be done within a bank.
How do customers and organisations build that trust, not only in the compliance but also in perhaps the platform and the software that is adhering to regulatory standard? What's the challenges you've got with that?
Oh, there are lots of challenges in compliance today. I think one, fundamental challenge is that the culture in financial services industry has been has had a very bad reputation, and the culture perhaps used to be how to make more money at any cost. But it's changing because we need to think about, what is the effect on the customers, what is the effect on end users, people like us, because finance, is the central part of everyone's life, and we need to actually address that challenge. In order to help to help banks to be more compliant. So I guess that's one part. The second part is that regulatory change has been extremely quick. It's grown in the last 10 years. If before 2008 we didn't have much regulatory change, after 2008, today there are 250 regulatory changes per day. That banks need to track.
Wow. And
that changes the dynamic in terms of how much work needs to be done to implement that regulatory change.
And in terms of your setup at the moment, so you've got a fantastic office here in central London, of course, but you've got teams in St. Petersburg and you've just launched operations in Singapore, is that right?
Yeah, so we literally just launched last week in Singapore. We do have an engineering team in St. Petersburg, and the team is about 50 people right now.
And again, you say there's a lot of disruption in the compliance in the industry, but it's not just with the banks, of course. There's also other industries like insurance as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's compliance is now a central part for many industries, not just financial services, insurance, asset management, but also you're seeing regulatory change coming to the tech industry. We've seen GDPR being implemented, data privacy laws in California, and there are other countries which are following. So it's becoming a global multi-industry change whereby regulators are they're recognizing that big organizations have massive impact on people's lives, and they need to make sure that these companies which have massive impact conduct, or I guess, comply with certain regulations in order not to damage, I guess, the way we live.
So I want to jump into the questions now to share with our listeners a bit of an insight into the day-to-day. What does a typical day in the business look like for you?
To be honest, it's very different every day, because as a business leader, you direct your attention where it's most needed. So, for example, one day I have one day dedicated to meeting different people from different teams, catching up with them, understanding the issues, and helping to, I guess, address those issues. Other days I would be at client meetings. So it really changes on a daily basis.
Who perhaps has had an influence on you as a leader, and what influence have they had in your life?
So I think I've been fortunate to have many people helping me along the way. So we have some great investors, angel investors, who helped me through very difficult times. For example, one of the investors, he really helped me to get through when we were running out of money, and we were having a hard time to raise capital. So he helped me with advice in terms of how to go through that period. Also with advice how to look at things, I guess, without emotion, and just understanding the situation and getting through it. But other founders, for example, helped me through other difficult times. On the personal side, on the business side. So I wouldn't want to single out just one single person, because I had some incredible people helping me.
Fantastic. And what about employee engagement then? So you've got teams in different countries, you're a growing organisation. How do you keep your employees engaged from the top?
I think it's one of the biggest challenges that growing companies face. It's being able to maintain the culture, which when you're 5, 6 people, 10 people, it's very easy. You're sitting in one place, in the same place together, and the culture comes from the founders. But as the team grows, it becomes much harder. So for us, employee engagement means that we had to implement different types of communication. So town halls, the entire company retreat, which we do once a year. So it's everyone comes together in a location, which we choose between offices. So it's not in the city where we have an office. And we, for the entire week, we run workshops. The product team has a hackathon to implement something that they're not working in their typical day-to-day, but actually, to imagine something and put it into life.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure it's great to have that communal get-together with everyone who may be in London or St. Petersburg or wherever they might be, just to collaborate without talking about work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, we have fun as well. And I think that helps, because certain teams wouldn't work together in normal day-to-day life, but they get to see each other, meet each other, and understand what they're working on. And I think that brings people together.
Jay, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing business leaders today?
So I think we touched on that in the previous question. I think it's maintaining the culture of the company, and also being able to direct that culture across the organization. I think in a global world where teams are sitting in different places, it's very difficult to align. So I think we need to pay a lot more attention to what culture we're breeding, because a lot of scandals we're seeing today, they're not because the company is not doing well, but actually it's because there are obvious gaps in the culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can think of Uber or Google as typical examples recently. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
So I think it's never fear change. So one of the fellow founders, once gave me this book, Who Moved My Cheese.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple book, and it's got lots of metaphors, but it's all about change and how people react to change. And if you don't react fast enough to change, or for example, if you fear it, then it's very, very difficult to adapt in this world.
Absolutely. How do you help a new employee to the company understand the culture of the organisation when they come in and join you?
So originally, it was me and my co-founder who would be kind of the drivers for the culture, and meeting new people,
Mm-hmm.
sitting down with them and talking through about the company, the roots of the company. It's becoming more difficult. So what we started doing is actually codifying our culture.
Okay.
And that is writing down our core values, writing down our mission and purpose. And it's an extremely difficult exercise because before you kind of instill the sense of the culture into people, but when you need to codify it, this is something that you agree with everyone that this is how, this is what you live by in this company. But once you have that, it actually aligns people. And what we found as well is that core values of companies and core values between people, they don't differ too much.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, or what does diversity and inclusion mean for you and within your company?
I think in terms of diversity and inclusion, it's we hire purely on merit, meaning that when we have a position, we would consider everyone for that position and hire the best person for the job. And it doesn't really matter who they are, where they come from. It really matters, that a person is driven, a person is, the person believes that they can achieve the best possible outcome for themselves, but also for the company.
Can you share a story from your childhood that perhaps influenced your work ethic in today now?
So I think I can share maybe a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So one, it's not really a story, it's just the way my early life turned out. When I was younger, my family moved quite a lot. So we moved from place to place. I think before I came to England, moved about 14 times. So I changed 4 schools in Russia, and then I also finished school in the UK. It just makes you able to adapt to changes in circumstances, no matter where you are, no matter what you do. And that has completely influenced how I lead the business as well. So it's never you're never stressed about changing circumstances, and you always find a solution how to get out of that. And then I guess another one is from early age, even when we had financial trouble within the family, my mom always told me that you can achieve anything, you can do anything. And I guess that made me believe in my dreams and also believe in the fact that I can achieve any goal, which I set for myself. And it's actually turning out to be true.
Fantastic.
Everything that I set out to do 10 years ago has come into reality in the last 10 years.
Talking about the time now, how do you see the industry changing from now, and where do you see it going in the next 5 years?
So I think when we look at compliance in financial services, it's an extremely manual job. And I think the reason is a lot of compliance knowledge is not codified. It's not digitized. So it's in people's heads, it's in emails, it's in documents. And we actually, because we don't have that knowledge digitized, machines don't have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that where machines finally have access to more structured data sets, you can apply machine learning, AI technologies, and then you can automate a lot of mundane tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our industry will become more automated. It will automate mundane tasks which compliance professionals do today, and I guess may help them to work on more interesting things.
If you had your time again and were giving your 20-year-old self advice, looking back now, what's the one thing you'd say to yourself?
I think the only piece of advice I would give myself is set goals and write them down. It's actually an interesting one because we think that getting things done is about tasks list, apps which help you to get things done. But I believe that achieving whatever you want to achieve is based on setting goals, which is outcome-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you set a goal, the tasks that you need to do will kind of pop up on your head anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of studies done on that. For example, Yale University, many years ago, they've done a study where they've evaluated one graduate class and people who set goals for themselves and wrote them down.
Mm-hmm.
So only 3% of students actually did that. And then they came back 20 years later, and those 3% of students were earning 97% of the net worth.
Wow.
Between them. So you can see that it actually works.
Mm. And just to give that granular detail, if someone's listening to this and perhaps they're starting out their journey in life, what do you mean by writing down your goals? Do you mean putting it on your desk next to your computer? Do you mean having it on some kind of notepad? What works for you, and what have you seen work well for others?
So I think there are a couple of things, and we now have this training across the company as well in terms of how to set goals, how to I guess visualize your dreams as well. So first you start with what you want to achieve as your dream. So we should dream, and we should allow ourselves to dream. And you can put together, for example, something like a dream board,
mm-hmm.
which is always in front of you, and it's very visual. When you visualize something, you give the signal to your brain that this is what you want, and then the brain works out how to get there. So that's, I guess, the first step. And then the second step is you can start by thinking about, so imagine it's your last day.
Mm-hmm.
So your last day in your life, and then what you would have wanted to achieve, and what would you be proud of when it's your last day.
Mm-hmm.
And write these things down, and write these things in every area of your life, so personal, financial, business, family, so all areas of your life. And then that will give you a framework to actually understand, well, this is what I want to achieve. And then you can go with longer term goals, mid-term goals, and short-term goals. It might be, let's say, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. Mm-hmm. And then that's what you end up with is actually calibrating exactly what you want and calibrating how to get there.
Thank you for sharing that, and thanks for answering all the questions, Jay. We've obviously done this today from your fabulous office up at level 42 in Canada Square over in Canary Wharf in London. If people want to find out more about your company, if people want to connect with you, what's the best ways they can do that?
So the company website, ClauseMatch.com. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter as ClauseMatch. Mm-hmm. My Twitter is Evgeny, EVGENYY. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So
fantastic. Tap you up there. Right. Well, thanks so much for partaking, and good luck with the business for this year.
Thank you.
We really hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please take a moment to give us a review. 4 stars would be good, but 5 stars would be amazing.